So today's topic or story is working overseas. So I'm Australian and I love to travel and experiencing different cultures, when you holiday or vacation, whatever you want to call it, is amazing, right? But if you can, I guess, go to school, like if you went to call it school exchange, always wanted to do one of those. Have you ever done one of those? Always wanted to do a school exchange. I wanted to go to France actually, but that's expensive, right? So never did a school exchange. But when I was able to start traveling, I I experienced a couple of different things. The first one I want to talk about is a school, because obviously that's the first thing. Like when you were younger, is do a school exchange. I unfortunately couldn't do that. So if you don't know what a school exchange is basically when you're in high school, you exchange like a semester of, a year of high school, like a couple of months, and then you go to a different country and go to school there. Um, so it's a pretty common thing. A lot of Asian countries do it, where kids come and do exchange over to Australia and experience, living in Australia and going to a school. So I need to put the air conditioning on. It's quite warm. It says it's 24 degrees. It's 3:30 in the afternoon here in Australia. It's winter, and it says it's 24 degrees. Anyway, sidetracked. So that's what school exchange is basically. I didn't do one of those because they actually cost a lot of money, right? Because you got to fly somewhere and you got to stay in someone's house. So I know, for example, here in Australia, one of my girlfriends, Gabriella, that you guys have met if you know me, um, she has a Airbnb and she sometimes puts up students and she gets paid like $220 or something. It could even be more money. I don't know exactly the figure, but the idea is that they stay in your house, you've got to feed them, right? So obviously someone has to pay for that. School doesn't pay for that. Your parents have to pay for that, right? So unfortunately, young Dora never had that experience. I really wanted that experience. I really wanted to go to France and experience school and the culture, as a 14, 15, 16-year-old. Again, very expensive. So I never went on that. Okay. My parents are not wealthy people. They are, they have money, they're medium-sized people, right? Medium-sized people, medium people, right? But that's extra. So I never experienced that. But what I did experience, and this is my dad's, thank you to my dad for this. I didn't want to do this. I'm going to be honest. I didn't want to do this. I'm half Indonesian. And when I was about, I think I was like maybe, oh, 7 or 8 or something like that. Like I was, not even a teenager yet. My mum used to take us to Indonesia, my sister and I. My sister's about 19 months younger than me. And my dad is a school teacher, and he said, you should go to school in Indonesia. I'm like, I don't speak the language. He goes, that's all right. Just go for one day and experience what it's like to be in a school in another country. So this kind of got me the idea of why I wanted to do a student exchange. So thank you, Dad, for dropping the idea. Let's have some tea while we're doing this. So I call this segment "Spilling the Tea" because sometimes I spill the tea while I drink and drive and tell your story. So this one time, we were in Indonesia. My mum said, okay, let's do this. Your dad, suggested that you go to a school for one day. And she took us to a school and they put us in the class around about our age group, right? And, obviously I might look half Asian, right? I don't look Western. I don't look Asian, right? But I'm in between, right? You could call me whatever you like. I've heard it all, right? I'm a mixed race, right? So obviously I took a photo of that class room too. And I've got the photo actually. I only recently looked at it again. And here's my sister and I sitting next to each other and this whole classroom of Indonesian people. And obviously Indonesian people look different to I do, even though I'm half Indonesian. So we stand out like sore thumbs, right? But I can't tell you what happened that day. I mean, I was really young, so I don't remember. But funny story, last year I went to Indonesia and a lady came who did massage. So she came to the house and did massages. Guess what? She was in the class that day. How crazy is that? And, she said, I remember that day. I showed her the photo I've for some reason had it on my phone. I don't know why, but I had it on my phone, and she pointed out which girl was her. It's crazy, hey? It's just crazy. But anyway, that was an experience. So that set it up, the idea that, to experience different things. So thanks, Dad, for that. So obviously, yeah, as I said, I really want to do a student exchange, but unfortunately, they are quite expensive, and I never got the opportunity. But as an adult, I started traveling, and that's how I got my nickname, Dora, Explorer Dora, because I've always got a backpack on. I've got brownish hair, and I always had a backpack on, right? And I like an adventure. So that's how I got nicknamed Explorer Dora, but Dora the Explorer. And unfortunately, Dora the Explorer has handles of many. So I called myself Explorer Dora 80. Explorer is a bit of a Spaniel because I used to live in Mexico for a while. So anyway, I wanted to talk about, I went, well, I, before I went to Mexico, I started working in different countries by selling timeshare. Now, selling timeshare is not for everyone. It's commission only, and that was the way I first worked in Ireland in Waterville, and that was an experience. I'm gonna be honest, a very good experience. So I'm not on holidays. I'm actually working. I was working illegal. I didn't have papers. Like I wasn't a legal person working in Ireland, but I was there for about 3 or 4 months, and like I was with one New Zealand girl that I already worked with in Australia, and I was with 4 guys from Scotland that I'd worked with in Australia. But when we were all in Ireland, in this place called Waterville, and then they hired a couple of people from Ireland. So I met a girl called Neve. So I guess, this opportunity was working with people I'd already known, but I got to meet Irish people, right? Like the establishment we worked at was a hotel called the Huntsman Hotel, and they were owned by an Irish family. So I got to know the Irish family. The receptionist her name was Philomena, Irish. So I got to, I made friends with Irish people, right? And that's, I guess, the whole idea of, when you work in a different country is you make friends, right? And Neve, who came from Killarney, which was like maybe uh, an hour away from Waterville in County Kerry, she came to work with us too. And I loved Neve. I unfortunately have lost contact with her. I've got her on Facebook, but I don't hear from her very often. So, but yeah, we've all gone different ways. But um, being able to work in a different country, regardless if you're legal or not, is such a good experience. And like I'd thoroughly encourage it if you have the opportunity to work in another country, is because you get to experience what everyday life would be like. Given that like timeshare is not exactly a normal job, but my job was to meet other Irish people, and have a chat with them about the timeshare resort that I was promoting, and how you could use that timeshare resort to go to other places around the world. And that's not your everyday job, right? I understand it's not like working at a bakery or a cafe or a restaurant. But that was my experience of working in a different country. It was selling timeshare. That was my first experience working in Ireland, and then I went to America, again illegally too. I was in a place called Mashpee in Hyannis in Cape Cod, and I worked with the same people. So again, I'm not really meeting new people when you're working with the same people, but some of the people in the office were from America. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't make any friends there because again, I was working with people that I'd already known. So interesting, because when you travel with someone, you're less likely to meet people because you're with someone, right? If you are by yourself, like I backpack a lot by myself, solo travel, you're more likely to meet people because you are by yourself. You're kind of like, oh, well, I'm by myself. I'm also, I'm lonely. I need to talk to someone. So you start talking to people. So it's kind of the same thing if you're working with the same people, you're not going to meet new people, right? So that's why in America I didn't make any, friends, and I never was Facebook friends with anyone. If I went back to that place, that the resort I was working at, I would not know anyone. So it was more about the experience of, I guess working with the same people. It was an experience. Yeah. But then the greatest experience I had was after we left America, we went to Cancun, Mexico to sell timeshare. And then I got immersed with all these crazy Mexican people. So, I mean, obviously, I still worked with some of the people I'd worked with prior, but I was working every day with so many different people from, different parts of Mexico. And there were some international people too. There were some British people, some people from, Argentina and different places, and Puerto Rico, Cuba, but mainly Mexican people, right? Because that's Mexico, Cancun's Mexico. Um, and I'm going to be honest, that's probably one of my best. Actually, I'm going to say it was my favorite job I've ever had, and that was overseas. Um, and I stayed there for about 7 months, and I had an absolute ball because I was immersing myself in the Mexican culture. So this is the cool thing, right? So again, timeshare is not your everyday job, I understand, but let me explain a little bit about it. Not really about it, but like the everyday thing, what I was doing. So I would go to work. I would catch. Actually, I sometimes would get a lift with a friend, but sometimes I'd catch the local bus. Now, the local bus was not really a local bus. It was a bus that took all the people from the resort. So I worked for a resort called the Moon, the Palace Hotels. That's what it called. So it was the Palace Hotels. They're a big chain of resorts around Mexico. I believe they've gone into Caribbean now too, like Jamaica and stuff like that. But they're a big, big hotel, and they had their own buses. So they would transport people from downtown Cancun, where I was staying and living, into where the resort was. So I'd catch the bus with a whole lot of people that worked in, the restaurants and bars and, the entertainment stuff. So, I got to, to say hello to, different people that I don't work with normally, right? Most of my friends would drive themselves, right? But I was, traveling, I was pretty much just by myself, solo traveling by this stage. My friends had already gone back to Scotland. I didn't have a car. I wasn't going to buy a car, right? I was just there for an experience. So I just caught the local bus, right? And sometimes my friends would drive me. But that was a really good way to meet everyday people and see how the everyday, people live and work. And I'll be honest with you, it makes you really grateful because in Mexico, people don't get paid very much money. Hey, Maddie, how you going? People don't get paid much money in Mexico. Like, working at a bar or a resort in Mexico, they earn hardly anything. Like compared to if I worked here in a bar or restaurant in Australia, you could make, I don't know, $20, $25 an hour, easy, right? Even more, $30, $35, depending on where you were in the management or whatever, or nighttime, weekends work. Whereas in Mexico, completely different scenario. The cost of, the staff there's so much staff that they just pay them pittance. It's so sad. It's so sad. So like, different classes of people. And as a traveler, as someone that, has traveled a fair bit, it humbles you because you're working around people that, here you are, I'm immersing myself in the culture of catching a bus to go work in selling timeshare in this big resort. Whereas the people I'm traveling with on this bus are, your local people catching, with the work at the bars and the restaurants and the cleaners and the housekeepers and stuff like that. And, they're making pittance, hardly anything, and it's interesting to see, like the different scale of position of, I guess, not saying position, but like, how people are. And it was eye opening for me. Like this is 25 years ago, mind you, no, 26 years ago now. I was 25 years old, and it was a real eye opener to see how the rest of the world was. Like, I have only experienced working in Australia, right? I mean, yes, I experienced working in Ireland for a little bit and America, but Mexico was a real immersion of how life could be, right? I'm blessed to have been living, born in Australia. Um, I could, just in case, if I were born in in Mexico, that could have been my life, and I wouldn't earn much money. But when you don't earn much money, you also don't live very crazily either, right? If you don't earn a big income, you don't have a big car and buy expensive things, right? Or travel around the world, right? So it's all relative. So it was really humbling for me, who likes to travel, to see that other side, right? And the other side of it also, and this just tells you the different, the racism even in a country like, depending on which country you are, watching this. Like I know fully well in Australia, there's some racism in Australia. Like I've been affected by racism. People give me shit about being half Asian, right? So I feel it myself. But even in Mexico, right, there is racism in Mexico against Mexican people. So, for example, I sell timeshare. So, timeshare, a lot of people make good money. I hardly made any money, going to be honest. It was an experience for me, okay? I made some money, but nothing much. But a lot of my friends I made friends with there made a shitload of money, like big money. They would drive, expensive cars and have Rolexes and Mont Blanc pens. Like their pen is worth, the salary of someone, working in the cafe they caught a bus with for like a month or even more. It was ridiculous. Like, so there was a lot of money to be made in timeshare. And so the class of people that I worked with were quite, I could say snobby, okay? I'll be honest, snobby, okay? And they would look down at, these people that worked with us at the timeshare resorts, working in the hotels. Who's that? We've got Gen X effect. Is that Paw Paw? Paw Paw, hey, how you going? Maddie's got here, I made a new friend in a grocery store today. She prayed for my mum. Oh, what's going on with your mum? So I'm just telling a travel story of when I was living in Mexico and how, it's great to travel, but it's also good to, do different immersions, I guess, kind of thing. Like, so I'm just telling a story about when I was working in Mexico selling timeshare and how the different classes of people, depending on where you worked, can be kind of racist against their own people. And I'm just generalizing here, guys. This is just the experience I found. So like I said, a lot of people I worked with earned good money and they would never catch the bus, the local school, the local work bus with all the, as I said, the entertainment people or the cleaners and stuff like that. They would never do that. They would catch their, they drive their Mercedes or whatever they drove, But I said, I just sometimes got the bus and I didn't mind it, right? But I remember one day, so, okay, let me go back one step. So the hotel was a big hotel. It had 20,000 rooms. It was a big hotel. Big hotel. And so they hired a lot of staff. So they actually had a restaurant downstairs that was just for staff because there's so many people that came into the hotel to work, they would have to feed them, right? So they had this amazing hotel downstairs. Now keep in mind, I'm Australian, right? I don't eat Mexican food every day here. It's not a normal thing, right? I'm Australian, living in Mexico, and I cannot believe the quality of the food that they made in the restaurant downstairs. It's not like a restaurant that, as a tourist, you go down there and buy food. No, it's not like that. It's free, only for the staff, right? You have to actually have a badge that says you work at the Palace Hotel. But the quality of the food down there was exceptional, like really, really good. Like, I mean, for me, coming from Australia, it's top notch because, like, Mexican food's not your norm here in Australia, right? And so I love the food downstairs. I would if I had a break and I wanted to eat something, I'd go downstairs and have something to eat, right? And I enjoyed the food so much. But as I said, some of the friends that I worked with were, I said, quite wealthy from working in timeshare. And they would say, "Oh, we're going to go have lunch somewhere." And I'm like, "Oh, I already ate downstairs." So they're like, "Oh, you ate downstairs? Ooh, yuck!" So that's the attitude I'd get because I ate downstairs. And this could be the traveler in me, I like to try different foods and experience different foods, right? So I loved it. It was like a journey for me. But the people that were Mexican thought, "Oh no, that's dirty. That's dirty down there." Not all of them, but some of them did. So yeah, so that was interesting to see, right? Like the different kind of, the way my Mexican friends thought of the other people that worked at the resort. So that was interesting. And look, you could say that's, similar here in Australia. Like, I don't know, like maybe people in management at a hotel might look down at the people that work as a cleaner. I've never worked in a hotel, so I don't really know. Generalizing again. But I don't know, it was just a different degree. Like I just really, really felt the contrast of, oh, we've got Dr. Ninja Turtle there. You were thinking about me yesterday, Mr. Dr. Ninja. Oh, well, that's nice. Hopefully in a good way. So I'm just telling a story about traveling and working and how, working you can see a different side to a country and a different side to people. you know and I'm sure this happens even in America, right? Like, the people that work, I don't know, I'm just going to Disneyland, right? Disneyland, at the hot, the management of me Disneyland probably look down to the people that work as the cleaners in Disneyland. I'm just generalizing. But for me personally, that was eye-opening for me when I was working in Mexico and seeing like the way that my friends, would treat and talk about, the other people that worked at the resort. I just thought that was interesting. It was interesting. But again, it makes you also very humble because, I didn't make a lot of money there, but these are my friends, right? These are my friends that I called my friends, even though they talk badly about, some of the Mexican people. Um, so I shouldn't judge them for doing that. But like, everyone has their reasons, okay? But like, this is maybe how the country works, right? I said, I've lived in Mexico 3 different times in my life. I lived there when I was 25, and I came back when I was 38, and then I was also working there when I was in my 40s too, early 40s. So, different kind of times in my life, and I saw different aspects of racism and the way that people kind of treat other people. Um, Yeah, and look, I'm far from racist. As I said, I'm half Asian. I've got my fair share of racism myself, trust me. Especially growing up at school. Oh my God, I used to get so much shit from the boys, and they thought it was funny to call, slant eye girl, all these kind of things, or ching chong Chinaman. I'm like, not even Chinese. I mean, I laugh about it now, right? But you know, different aspects of, I guess, different countries have, different aspects of, racism. But by traveling and immersing yourself in, like, a job, it's a different way of seeing a culture and really understanding it. I absolutely loved it. I thoroughly recommend, if you do travel and you want to travel for, like, 6 or 7 months or a year, if you can get a job in that country, you'll see a different aspect, right? You'll see a different. Hear me out. My dictionary has grown so much from Dora. Thanks, Dora. Love you. Keep your glasses on, makes you feel sick. Cute. Oh, thank you. I miss your lives, Dr. Ninja. And isn't. Oh, hey, Nicholas. How you going? I didn't even see you, Nicholas. Sorry. I'm just too busy having a little chat. So, yeah, I'm just talking about, how, honestly, I don't think I would be who I am today if I didn't have those experiences working in a different country. Like, Mexico for me was amazing. Hey, Paul, how you going? Gosh, everyone's here today. Hello, everyone. Um, I think, to be honest, I don't think I'd be Dora today if I didn't have that experience, working in Mexico. Um, I think it was a good thing for me. I think it made me more humble. It made me appreciate the value of money, and that, some people, I might earn X amount of dollars doing what I do now, right? But, that same job in another country would be worth hardly anything, maybe. So I just, I think, I don't know, I think for me personally, it made me a better person from working with different people from different cultures and seeing how things work, how it's so different to where I live, right? Um, and the experiences. Okay, I'll give you an experience, right? So, for example, here in Australia, right? I'm talking 25 years ago, 26 years ago, right, guys? Um, Having, gay relationships was around, right? It just wasn't that out there, right? Now it's quite, it's quite normal and open that, I could be a lesbian or bisexual, or, Paul could be gay. It's no big deal, right? It's no big deal, right? But 26 years ago, it was very different. Okay. It was starting to become a thing, but it wasn't, it was just, people didn't really talk about it very often, right? Now is a completely different story. But in Mexico, when I was working in timeshare, I would sit there some days, right? I'd be at a table with all my friends that I work with, and the guys would be like this. Like, they would, like, okay, just pretend this is a guy next to me. Pretend I'm a guy and there's a guy next to me. they would be feeling the back of their neck, like feeling the back of their neck. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I'm like looking at this very confused, right? They're like feeling each other's necks up. And I'm just like, huh? And then, the other one would be like, playing with their arm. And I'm like scratching my head going, that guy's not gay. Like, he's married. Like, what the hell is going on here? But this is what they're very affectionate in Mexico, in, this Hispanic kind of culture. They're very, 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 I guess, flirty, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Would you say bisexual? I don't think so, because he was like the guy that was doing it was completely. I don't think he was gay. He was a good friend of mine, Alex. I can say the name because they're never going to be watching my YouTube channel. Definitely not. Um, but yeah, Alex was your macho man. Like in Mexico, this is another thing. In Mexico, fat is cool. Being fat is like they call it gordo. Is actually um, powerful. If you're fat, you're powerful. You've got money because you eat a lot of fat. So anyway, my friend Alex is very gordo. He's very big, and I guess he's well regarded. He's got a bit of money and all that kind of stuff. But he had a wife. I met his wife. I was friends with his wife. But he was like, and this guy was, I could tell he was openly gay. Jeffrey was definitely gay, right? He's your typical gay guy, right? And he's, we'll talk about it, right? But my friend Alex is like feeling him up on his back of his neck. I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? But this is good. This is good because, I could have been like, hey, what the fuck's going on here, guys? What's going on? But I was open-minded. I'm just like sitting here going, okay, just watch. Part of traveling and immersing yourself in cultures is to watch, right? Just to watch. So I'm just watching it. I'm just like, I don't understand. But anyway, I'm watching anyway. And I actually had to say to my friend a couple of days later, I said, hey, I'm so confused. Like, what is going on? I said, like, Alex is definitely not gay. He's married. I know he likes girls because, he talks about girls to me all the time, right? We're good friends. And then Jeffrey is clearly gay, into guys, but they're kind of flirting. And she goes, that happens all the time, Muriara. I'm like, really? I said, why? I said, is Alex like, going to be gay? And he goes, no, I doubt it. This is what happens. Like gay guys flirt with, straight guys all the time. And straight guys will flirt back. Doesn't mean they're going to do anything. It's just, just the culture, just the way they do things. Seeing more and more of that kind of happen. And it became quite normal. So I'm like working around, gay guys and straight guys and, they're touching each other up. And there's a bit of sexual, innuendo. And I'm just like, okay, this is the norm. So anyway, yeah, that was I would never experience that. If I just went to Mexico and I went on a holiday and stayed at, an all-inclusive resort, which most people do, I would never have seen that side of it. So I'm blessed for seeing that. I mean, it sounds really weird that I'm blessed to see, two guys, a gay guy and a straight guy, flirt with each other. But there was nothing at it. There was nothing on the other end of it. It was just, we're sitting here having a conversation and they're just touching each other's skin. I don't know. If have you been to Mexico? Do you know Mexican friends? Is that normal? That's my experience of how I've experienced it. And I have worked at a couple of resorts, different resorts. It wasn't just that resort. Um, yeah, so that was interesting, very interesting. So another time, I came back and I was working in Mexico. I was at a different resort, and their restaurant. Keep on going about food. I'm a big foodie, guys. I love food. Okay. Um, the Mexican restaurant. It wasn't a restaurant. Cafeteria. Let's go with cafeteria. Cafeteria, because it wasn't. You don't buy your food there. Basically, if you worked at the resort, you got a ticket. So every day you had one ticket that you could go and eat at the restaurant or the cafe or cafeteria, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to be honest, the food here was the best food I've ever tried in Mexico. I mean, that's how amazing it was. It was like the best food I've ever tried in Mexico. Why is that eyebrow like that way? Anyway, just laughing at myself. And like we used to call it the happy cat. I don't know why we call it the happy cat. No idea, but they would all say, "Hey, where are you going? You're going down to Happy Cat to have something to eat." Yeah, yeah, cool. And everyone. Now, so this is interesting. The last hotel I worked at, none of the managers or the people, the big wigs would eat down at the restaurant. They would that's beyond them. That's peasant food, right? But this resort, even the big wigs, the managers, the big bosses, all ate down at the little restaurant. So just tells you that it depends on where you are, and I guess maybe the quality of the food. I don't know. Maybe I'm not that fussy with food. I'll just eat anything. But then it was like that experience was in the year 2000 when a lot of people were like, "Oh no, I'm not going to eat at that restaurant." And then it was back in 2013. I went back to Mexico and I had this experience, and the food was phenomenal, phenomenal. I would love to go back to that resort and just eat the food there. I wonder if I could get a ticket. I'd pay for it. I would literally pay for it because the food was so good, so good. So another time in Mexico, I had this idea. I had this idea about doing work experience because, I was working there in a timeshare hotel. I was now doing telemarketing, and I was talking to Americans and Canadians on the phone. But I know I had 2 days off a week or 1 day off a week. I can't remember. But I wanted to do some work experience. So what I decided to do was I wanted to go experience working at a bar, a tortilla place that makes tortillas, or some restaurant and bar or something like that. See you, Maddie. So anyway, me and my crazy idea, it's not Australia, right? Australia, you have to have insurance and all the things to, do volunteer work or work experience. But anyway, I go up to a tortilla place. So tortillas, we're talking about that make the tortillas, the famous tacos, the soft tacos. So in Mexico, most people eat the soft tacos. But they've got tortilla makers that make them, the shitloads of them every day. And you walk past them and there's all the tortillas, made. And it's amazing. So anyway, that's the first place I went to, around the corner from where I lived. And I asked them in very, very bad Espanol, could I volunteer? And then they looked at me like, "You're fucking crazy. You want to volunteer? I just want to, just for 1 day or a couple of hours, just see how you make things." And they're like, "Okay." They said, "Look, I'll have to ask my boss." And of course the boss said no, because he was just "That's just stupid. Why does some weird Australian girl want to come in and do work experience?" So that didn't work. They went, boom. So I went around to a couple of places. I went to a big restaurant. They went, "No, no chance." I was like, "Damn it." Anyway, then I found a Thai restaurant owned by Mexican people. And they said, "Sure." I was like, "Okay." So they said, "You have to wear a white shirt." So I even went and bought a white shirt to go work there. So it's serious. I wanted to experience this. I just thought, you know what? When in Rome, why not, right? So I went and worked at the Thai restaurant, and I had so much fun. Now, keep in mind, I have worked in Thai restaurants before in Australia, so I was very familiar with the food, how to say the names of the names of the meals in Thai, and they were all written in Thai, and then they were written in English, and then they were written in Espanol, which I obviously can't read Espanol. Um, and I had so much fun. I even made a few tips. I didn't get the tips. The tips went to the staff. But they paid me in food. I was well impressed. When I told my Mexican friends, they're just looking at me going, you're loco. You're absolutely loco. But it was such fun experience. And Paul, why didn't we not do this when we were in Bali? Why didn't we not say to Michael, "Hey, instead of us drinking one afternoon and watching the sunset, why don't we try to, drum up business for him and, sell drinks in exchange for a bit of fun?" That would have been fun. Paul, would you do that? Putting it out there. Would you do that, Paul? Is Paul there? Any takers? Any takers? So maybe that would be an experience. So Michael's Beach Bar was the bar that Paul and I went to every afternoon to watch sunset and drink bintang beers. But the staff there was only two staff there, Michael and his son. What was his name? His name was Junior Michael Junior. Um, maybe, yeah, maybe next year. Yeah, I reckon. How fun would that? Can you imagine, Paul? I'd be like, "Hey, come on down. Who was it? Remember the guy next door? old grumpy bum, we'd be like, hey, what a drink, 2 for 1. No, we wouldn't do that. Um, but I reckon it'd be so much. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That'd be so much fun. Yeah, that'd be so much fun. I always wanted to work at a bar. I've never worked at a bar. I've worked at a bar only at a Thai restaurant, but it wasn't really a bar. It was a restaurant, but they had a bar. And I thought I was like Tom Cruise doing the, cocktails. So much fun. Anyway, I have to drive home. I have been talking now for 35 minutes. My Spilling into Tea series is just me doing a short travel story. And today's travel story was literally about, working overseas and work experience. Yes, I know it's very crazy. Oh, and school, because I went to school in overseas for like a couple of hours. But Paul's got here. I'm sure Michael would be up for it. I know he'd be up for it. He'd be loving it. He'd be like, sit down. He'd have a beer. Oh, you know what I'd do? I'd say, I'm going to shout you a beer, Michael, or a couple of beers. You sit down, you and your son. Here's some peanuts. Here's a couple of beers. We'll look after the rest, after the bar. And we'll, give people drinks. We'll serve them. I'd be vigilant going, oh, you need another drink, mate. You look thirsty. Let's go. I'd love that. I'm doing that. And there's no insurance to worry about in Mexico, right? I mean, in Bali, they wouldn't care. They'd be like, hey, knock yourself out. Just don't scare people away. That could be a thing. I could probably scare them away. They're like, what are you doing? I'm half Indonesian. I live here. Do you want a beer? Hey, it's an idea, right? It's all about ideas. Anyway, that's my spilling the tea, guys. Thank you for listening. I managed not to spill tea, which is great. I'm going to drive home. And I really shouldn't be driving home when I've got the car, the phone on me. I normally put the phone down here and drive home. But I like to call, like my spilling the tea, I like to only have it for about 30 minutes. And I've already gone to 37 minutes. So let's stop that now. So, Paul, hope you've had an awesome day. In Australia today, it's 24 degrees right now. Let me show you guys. It's 24 degrees. Let me show you. It's 4:11 a.m., 11 p.m. It's 24 degrees outside. But look at this. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful, beautiful winter day here in Australia or in Queensland. I don't know what it's like down in Victoria at the moment for Paul, but absolutely stunning day. I reckon tomorrow's going to be just as nice. So tomorrow I'm heading up Sunshine Coast. So hopefully after work, I hope to go for a walk on the beach and, just, take in a bit of vitamin C. So anyway, guys, 16 degrees here. Ooh, yeah, it's cold. Anyway, mate, just have a think about that idea. I reckon, Paul, you could do the money of it. I think you could sell some beers too, I reckon. I reckon the ladies would love it. You'd probably attract all the ladies. The ladies walking past and they're like, oh, hey, Paul, how you going? Come in for a drink. Imagine that. And their experience in Bali was like, we went to this beach bar that was run by Paul and Dora. And then there's these Michael and Michael Jr. sitting there getting drunk, watching the sunset. I think that'd be funny. Anyway, could be my humour, but anyway. Thanks for watching, guys. And here is a playlist of, spilling the tea and a new video, an old video. I don't know.